Welcome back, guys, to another video. This is Sargent Chicken, and today we are going to be talking about why you should learn website design and how I actually design websites using Figma. Now, what we're going to be walking through today is how I designed the last page on my website, this deals page. And before we get started, I just wanted to mention that I will be leaving timestamps and other important links in the description so you guys can easily skip to the information you need by just looking at those. And with that said, let's get started. So today is all about website design and why you should learn to design a website. Now, before I get started, I just want to let you know that I am by no means a professional website designer. I have been designing websites for about 4 years now and have a lot of experience just making and working with websites and how users experience websites. So the advice that I'm giving you is based on those experiences. Now, with that out of the way, let's start talking about website design. The first thing I want to talk about today is why you should plan on your website before you start making it. This is something I've only started doing recently and has not only sped up my programming process, but also made my websites look a lot better. Making a plan for how your website looks will give you a clear image of your final product, speeding up the development process. And why you should learn website design is another thing that I want to talk about. Whether you own a small business or just want to create a platform to share your opinion, learning how to design and create websites could be a huge benefit to you. This has helped me create my own portfolio site, which I will leave a link for in the description. And now that we've got those two things out of the way, let's get started. First off, the tool that I'm using right now to design websites is called Figma. Figma is a browser or desktop application that you can use to design websites or mobile apps and make this process much smoother. So I will leave a link in the description so you can go and check them out. Now moving into designing on Figma, so far, as you can see, I have created 3 of the 4 pages for a new website that I'm working on called Aaron's Budget PCs. And if you noticed, there is one page missing, and that is the deals page. So today I'm going to walk you guys through how I make a page on my website, and we are going to start off by making the deals page. So let's get started. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do in Figma is you're going to want to create a frame. A frame is going to let you drag, it's your container. It's your viewport for all your elements. So you just click the frame tool. It's the little grid in the top left corner, and then you just drag it to the size that you want. So we're going to make this an HD screen, so 1920 by 1080. And now that we've done that, we can actually start creating the page. So the first thing I'm going to do is rename this to deals page. Just so we know that this is a deals page. Now, the first thing that I want to show you that I like about Figma is your ability to create containers. So the first container that I'm going to copy over into the deals page, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, is this nav bar. And what I've done is, I'll show you guys how to create all these elements in a second, but you can right click and then on any element you want and click create component. And what that does is it lets you group elements together under one name. So in this example, it's the nav bar. So now what I can do now that I've created a component is I can copy this, which I do by just using a shortcut Control C, and then going over to my deals page and pasting it. So now we already copied over the same nav bar from one page to another without having to do any work creating new elements or anything like that. So that's just one way that Figma just simplifies the process of designing. So the first thing that I want to do before we get started is just change this, the nav bar. What I plan for the website is having, when you highlight over a link, that it'll change to the color of the link as you're on that page. So I'm going to reset this because we are not on the parts page, we are on the deals page. So I'm going to set this to white and then set the deals fill color to our Aaron's Budget PC's blue. Alright, so now that we've got the nav bar in, we're actually going to start creating the deals page for Aaron's Budget PCs. Now, I have a good idea in my head of how I want this to look, but I'm planning on making it similar to the Aaron's Budget Motherboards page, except now, instead of having just motherboards or these will all be different parts, I'll just have my top picks. So I think what I'm going to do is just copy over. Well, no, I won't copy over them. I'll show you guys how to make each element. So when you're creating a new text element, you're going to click on this text tool in the top left, and then just drag out a box for your text tool. And now to just add text, so at the top we're going to have a header just saying Aaron's top picks. Okay, and that looks great. Now we haven't changed the spacing or anything at all, so one cool thing I want to show you about Figma again is your ability to add columns that you can use to organize and make sure everything is in line on your web page. So if we click on the deals page frame at the top, and then we look to this right side menu that lets you edit everything, edit all your features, we're going to add a layout grid. Now this looks really ugly. We don't like a grid here. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to columns, and we're going to do 12 columns because that's standard if you use a CSS grid when you're actually making a website. So now that I have these grids, I can use them to guide my elements. So on each of these other pages, what I've done is I've given 2 grids of space on each side between each element, which you can see from the add space, that's 2 columns. So I'm going to size that accordingly so that it fits within 2 columns on each side. And now what I want to do is I want to scale this up so that it looks more like the header that we have over here. And first, before I do that, I'm just going to set this to 200. And now we can just go to font size and we'll scale it up 70. No, we can go a little bit bigger. We'll just say 96. And that looks good. And then I actually want to change the weight of this too. And if you notice, I highlight everything that's important to blue. So to stay with that theme, I'm going to highlight the word top to the Aaron's Budget PC's blue. Alright, so that header is looking pretty good now. So now what I want to do is make my columns that are going to have the top picks of the day or the week. I haven't decided on exactly what I want to do for the top picks. So I believe in this example over here, each column took up 3 total columns. So to create a new column, I'm going to start with an image. And first I'm just going to grab an image from the internet. So just give me 1 second. Alright, so we've got this image of a GPU that I just grabbed from the internet. So now what we can do with this is we want to actually make our columns that are going to have all our top picks. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually scale this down. And in order to scale images so that you don't scale them disproportionately like this, you can just hold shift and it'll let you scale it proportionally. So I'm just gonna get this down to the width of 3 columns. And for some reason it is not locking. We want to get this image to the bottom of, for some reason my tools aren't locking, but that's alright because we can tell here that it's scaled to 3 columns. Alright, so now I'm actually just going to copy this because we're going to have another 3 columns. Of space taken up over here by the same, and this is just a placeholder image that we're just going to use as an example. So now that we've got our images for each of our boxes, I'm going to add just some text below. And then we do not want this to be huge, so we'll just set it to 24. And this is a NVIDIA GTX 980. So then we can actually make that a little bit larger. Oops. 36. Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good size. I'm actually gonna scale down the size of the box a little just to make it a little bit closer. And then if we wanted to add a background, we could use the rectangle tool, which has a shortcut of Control R. Whoa. So then we can, oh, that's why those images were not, there we go. Okay, that's why those images weren't being centered. It's because they weren't on the page technically. Alright, so now we can move this to the very back and set the color. We'll set it to a black. Yeah, like a dark gray. And then we're gonna want to, oh, I guess this wasn't a PNG. So we'll just have to leave it like that. But if this was a PNG, then you would be able to see the rectangle. But now that we have that, we can just change the text color to match our new background, so we'll change that to white. And then over here, I guess we can just leave this as an example of what it would look like without the background. And then this actually is now off center because we created that box. We'll actually make this the height of the rectangle, and now it should be, yeah, now that's centered. Okay, so now if we go to our frame, turn the grid lines off, now we can see this page is starting to take shape. And I think I actually like this theme better because with the rectangle, because it lets you see that it looks more like a button that you could click on, opposed to here where it's just text below an image. So I'm actually just going to take that, using Control C and Control V again. We're going to move this up just so we can see it. And then move it back down. And now we can change our text so that it actually looks nice. Alright. So there, now we've got our two columns. And what I'm going to show you next is how to actually turn those into a container that you could copy instead of having to completely recreate it again if you wanted to. So you can do this on any of these elements, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to select image 4, and you can right click and then click create components. Now what that'll do is that'll make this a component, so you can drag other elements into your components. So I'm going to drag the image or the text within the component and the rectangle associated with that component, and I'll just rename this, whoops, put the rectangle to the back, and I'll rename this deal box. Okay, so now that we have that component, I'm actually just going to delete all of this, and we actually want that displaying at the top above everything else. So okay, so now that we have our deal box component, we can actually just Control V, Control C, Control V, and now we have a copy of that deal box component. And I'm actually going to bring up our guides here again, just so we can make everything back to even. And now, with way less effort, we were able to copy over that deal box and make another one. So that about wraps up this tutorial. One other thing I guess I could show you is just creating, well, I already showed you how to create a rectangle, but there's also, you can also, if you don't like having these columns over everything, if you go to the top or scale, I think you have to turn, there are guides that you can have that you can drag out, but I think you have to turn those on. Yeah, rulers. Oh, that adds yep. So then if you turn on rulers, how to do that again is you go to edit, or sorry, not edit, view, and then you have all these options. Just click rulers, make sure it has a check by it, and I guess the shortcut also is Shift R. to toggle on and off your rulers. So then if you drag from the top or from the left, you can drag in a guide that you can use instead of having to use columns. But I like having the columns because it's a little bit easier, and they're all the same length, so it makes it simple to add elements into your page. But yeah, that about wraps up this tutorial. And just as a little recap, I showed you how to add elements, create a container, set up your new page in Figma, and why you should learn how to design websites and create them, and what are some good reasons for designing websites. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.